With there only just being under a week left till 1.4 arrives, not only will Harumasa be dropping, but so will the most highly anticipated character in the game, Miyabi. This will be the first time ever since launch that we will have two banners at the same time, but fortunately enough, Harumasa is a free character, which then provides every player with a perfect opportunity to just focus on pulling for potentially the most broken DPS. So to ensure you are fully prepared for Miyabi's release, I'll be going through the Ascension and skill upgrade materials required, her best team synergies, viable W engines, disc drive sets Miyabi can utilize, and ultimately, if you should summon for Miyabi. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now regarding Miyabi's Ascension and skill upgrade materials, similar to Harumasa, you wouldn't be able to farm any expert challenge materials or weekly boss materials, since there will be a new weekly boss and expert challenge in 1.4 that will drop materials Miyabi will require. So aside from those, you would need the regular 4 basic anomaly certification seals, 32 advanced anomaly certification seals, and 30 controller certification seals. In addition, for her skills, you'll need 25 basic freeze chips, 75 advanced freeze chips, 250 specialized freeze chips, and 5 hamster cage passes. Once 1.4 does drop and you do have access to the new weekly boss and expert challenge, you will need the standard 60 drops from the expert challenge and 9 drops from the weekly boss. Then as always, you'll need 3.7 billion dennies on hand to use these materials for Miyabi. As for Miyabi's team synergies, they are definitely a lot more restricted than most characters, considering that in order to activate both of Miyabi's core skills, you will need either a character from the same faction or a support character along with an ally that can assist in triggering this order often. So with the core skills in mind, without a doubt the best ally for Miyabi would be Yanagi, since she is from the same faction as Miyabi and is capable of triggering this order often due to being an anomaly DPS. So with that, if you do have both Miyabi and Yanagi together, then the third slot would have a bit more flexibility, allowing you to be able to slot in Caesar, which is a defense type character but is considered as the best support in the game. So the team composition of Miyabi, Yanagi, and Caesar will certainly be the best team for Miyabi and potentially the best team in the game. Since you would of course have Miyabi popping off and dealing tons of damage, Yanagi would be triggering polarity disorders along with the regular disorder, and Caesar is capable of countering any attack along with providing a ton of utility. So as expensive as this team would be, it will be the best and most powerful composition for Miyabi. Though if you don't specifically have Caesar, as an alternative you could use either Rina, Seth, or Sokaku. With Rina, she is capable of providing up to 30 pen ratio to allies, which would be amazing for both Miyabi and Yanagi. Additionally, when enemies are shocked, Rina's second core skill will buff Yanagi's electric damage by 10%. However, possibly the most valuable aspect of Rina's kit is the fact that she can buff her allies and take up little to no field time, which is perfect to enable 2 anomaly DPS characters to be utilized efficiently. So if Rina is a character you have, then she would be a great substitute for Caesar. Though as for the more free-to-play options being Seth and Sokaku, Seth will be the best A-rank character for the third slot since his core passives are tailored for the anomaly archetype. Given his first core passive provides a shield to allies along with providing 100 anomaly proficiency, and as for the second core passive, Seth is capable of reducing anomaly build-up resistance by 20%, which would especially be great for Miyabi since her core passive requires disorder to be triggered as often as possible. So Seth would certainly be a great character that synergizes well with Miyabi and Yanagi. Though with Sokaku, she would still be a great option, considering that she is in fact capable of providing 1000 flat attack along with increasing ice damage for allies by 20%, which means she would be more beneficial for Miyabi overall but would still benefit Yanagi with the massive attack buff. So the Section 6 squad is definitely a viable team that synergizes pretty well together. Now if you don't have Yanagi, then as mentioned, Miyabi's team synergies will become a lot more restricted, but they would still be quite solid overall. For instance, Miyabi alongside Bernice and Lucy would be an incredibly synergistic and powerful team, since Bernice specializes in dealing damage off field and triggering burn insanely quick, which would definitely allow for disorder to be triggered very often and provide Miyabi with plenty of field time. Then with Lucy also being capable of dealing damage off-field and providing a 600 flat attack buff to allies, it would allow her to be a perfect support for the team. Additionally, she will activate Miyabi's core passive given she is a support and would assist Bernice in triggering burn even quicker. Alternatively, instead of Bernice, you could use Piper as she is a physical anomaly DPS that is capable of triggering assault pretty often. Also, her core passive is capable of buffing all allies' damage by 18%, which would of course be quite valuable for Miyabi. So this composition is viable but is especially easy to access, given that both Piper and Lucy are A-rank characters that players are able to obtain. Although, instead of Lucy, you could even use Sokaku as the support for the team, since as mentioned, Sokaku would benefit Miyabi majorly but is still capable of providing Piper with a 1000 flat attack boost. Lastly, a forgotten character at this point due to the overload of anomaly characters, Grace would be an option alongside Miyabi, and as for the third slot, Rina would be the best character within this team composition. The Grace and Rina synergy really isn't anything new, as we've known for a while now how great they do synergize together. So along with Miyabi, Grace and Rina would be capable of triggering shock quite easily, and both do take up hardly any field time, leading to Miyabi dominating the field herself for most of the time, along with receiving an increase in pen ratio from Rina's core skill. Now those would be the easier team compositions to build and run, but you can also use a team such as Miyabi with Lighter and Lucy. Although, since there isn't another anomaly DPS on the team, you may want to consider providing Lighter with a Freedom Blue set in order to play him as a pseudo anomaly DPS, allowing you to trigger burn more often whilst also providing valuable buffs to Miyabi that will increase her ice damage. So as restricted as Miyabi may seem with her team synergies, there are quite a few options you are able to utilize with or without Yanagi. Moving on to Miyabi's viable W engines. Now if you thought Miyabi's team synergies felt a bit restricted, then you won't be happy with the fact that as of now, Miyabi has no solid alternatives to her signature W engine, due to the fact that Miyabi is an incredibly unique anomaly DPS that scales off crit rate. As for her signature W engine, it has a 24% crit rate main stat, and as for the passive, it provides an increase of 50% crit damage when dealing ice damage, and when an ally inflicts an attribute anomaly, Miyabi's ice damage increases by 20% and can stack up to 40%. So given that this W engine is the only anomaly W engine that provides any crit value, it will be pretty much essential if you want Miyabi to perform optimally. So as of now, this will be Miyabi's best and only viable anomaly W engine. But since this is the case, I do believe the A-rank W engine that is given for free through completing the event in 1.4 will in fact be the A-rank alternative to Miyabi's signature W engine, since it would only make sense, and it's a bit unreasonable to force players to pick up a signature W engine, even though most players likely do intend to pick it up. However, as Miyabi does value crit rate, and if the A-rank W engine turns out not to be an alternative for Miyabi, which I doubt would be the case, then any of the attack type W engines with a crit main stat would be a possible alternative. So either the Deep Sea Visitor, Steel Cushion, or the Cannon Rotor would be viable just for the crit rate main stat. Of course, this isn't the most conventional method, but since there are no other anomaly W engines with any crit value, you would either need to pull for Miyabi's signature or use one of the attack W engines I just mentioned. But I am banking on the new A-rank W engine coming in clutch as a free-to-play option for Miyabi. Now as for disc drive sets, Miyabi will be receiving a new dedicated set, being the Branch and Blade Song. The 2-piece effect will provide 16% crit damage, whilst the 4-piece effect increases crit damage by 30% when anomaly mastery exceeds or equals 115 points. Additionally, when any member applies freeze or triggers the shatter effect, Miyabi would receive 12% crit rate. So this set would be the best 4-piece set by far, as it does revolve around crits and anomaly stats, meaning it will be a must run for Miyabi, and you should disregard any other 4-piece disc drive set. Regarding the 2-piece set to run alongside it, there are a couple of options, consisting of Polar Metal, Freedom Blues, Chaos Jazz, the Hormone Punk, and the Woodpecker Electro. The Polar Metal set will focus on boosting ice damage, whereas Freedom Blues and the Chaos Jazz will increase damage inflicted from triggering an anomaly, and with the Hormone Punk, it will just be a generic attack boost that will increase Miyabi's overall damage. So these 4 options will increase Miyabi's damage one way or another, but I would recommend just sticking with the Polar Metal set as it will directly impact Miyabi's ice damage. However, if you are lacking in the crit rate department, then the Woodpecker Electro 2-piece will be a must till you have acquired enough crit rate through the substats. And on that note, as for Miyabi's Disc Drive main stats, you ideally want crit rate on the 4th Disc Drive, ice damage percent or attack percent on the 5th Disc Drive, and attack percent on the 6th Disc Drive. Regarding the substats, you would want to aim for crit rate and crit damage first, then attack percent, anomaly proficiency, pen, and flat attack. Now regarding if you should summon for Miyabi, it goes without saying it's almost certain that she will be the strongest DPS character in the game, and even somehow if that isn't the case, Miyabi's animations are completely insane and are the best out of every other character. So from a damage and visual perspective, Miyabi would be a no-brainer for every player. Though with that being said, it would still of course depend on your account. If you have Yanagi for instance, you would definitely be more inclined to pull for Miyabi, since Yanagi opens up Miyabi's team synergies to be a lot more flexible and would allow for an easier time building a team. If not, then of course it wouldn't be as easy, but as I have gone through numerous teams without Yanagi, there are still viable compositions that synergize extremely well with Miyabi. So if you are especially in need of a strong DPS character to help you through endgame content, then Miyabi will be the best character to pick up. On the other hand, if you don't require any more DPS characters, then you can comfortably skip and wait for whatever is dropping after 1.4, which could also be extremely valuable since I'm sure the devs would want to capitalize on Miyabi draining majority of players. So it is completely down to you, but since Miyabi just looks amazing visually, extremely fun to play with, and is certainly going to hit like a truck, it would be very much worth picking up Miyabi. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more ZenlessZoneZero content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on whether you are summoning for Miyabi and which team exactly will you be running her in. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.